Hello and welcome back to chapter 5, lecture number 33. So we have the background image, and I like to focus on adding a sapling tree. So I turn on the shortcuts and we go to add, curve, and sapling tree. So in my opinion, this background image is a little bit too in your face, so let's delete it. And we do it again, add, curve, sapling tree generator. All right, we open this tab on the left and we have these settings. So in this shape menu, you have a lot of different options. So you have inverse conical and you have like spherical, and you can see it has different sort of base shapes to start with. So, for example, this shape looks very good to start with a tree that looks like to do this. So we can tune it and it looks good to that one. Or if you have this inverse conical, that one looks, if you tweak it of course, very good to a tree that looks like this. Well, not really, but you get the idea. You can start with base shapes and then you start tweaking it. And that's very important. I like to start with a tapered cylindrical, simply because it has sort of a nice rounded shape, same as the background image. But I want to make this a little bit taller, so I change this value to 7. And I want to decrease the amount of base roots. So for this, I go to another tab, and that is branch splitting. So you have this base split, and it's by default a tree. You go to 2, 1, and you go to 0, and you have just one base root. What fits perfectly for what we want to make. All right, and you have levels, and that's the amount of splitting areas for the branches. So it's by default by 2. If you go to, let's lower this, you can see what happened. So if you have 0, you start with 1. You go for one more level, you have these branches, then you have a lot of, and you have crazy amount of branches. Okay, this is, if you look at the background image, this is not what we want, but we can tweak this with all the settings. So for this, we go back to the branch, or let's start with the geometry, and maybe you want to have a different seed. You don't know, just change, and I think number 2 was not bad at all. Yeah, so let's keep this one. We have a scale of 7. Let's go for the branch radius. So I want to make this base root a bit thicker. So it's now 0.015. Let's make this 0.022. Of course, I made some test versions, and in my opinion, this one works pretty good. But it doesn't matter if you make 0.20 or 0.24. What is important is that the branches are thick. These sort of branch roots are thick as well. And I want to decrease that. So I think that's a level 2. And let's lower this value. You go to the tweak radius and you make that 1.75. And I will make them smaller. You go to 7. Otherwise, you will see these very thick branches when you have the final tree. I think that's not good. Not good. I want to do some, let's say, we'll go back for the tree. And the root flare, I want to make this, let's go for 2. And you have this nice root, and we're going to change it later on. Well, maybe 1.2. That's more smaller, but it's definitely good. And let's go to the branch growth. What I like to do in this tab is do a sort of, well, first I forgot to increase some values. I'm going so fast, I forget what to do. So you can see how many times the branches are split. So you have the base branch is split by 55 times, and the second one for 10. And I want to increase that one. So we have way more splitting, and that's good to have a thick tree with a lot of leaves. All right, so there is more values you can change, but these are like for the expert, for the professionals who want to really focus on the perfect tree. And what I like to do with you is start making a good base tree. So I will skip these values and I will give you some air. Okay, we go to the branch growth, and there is one value that I like to change, and that's the down angle. But before we do that, we go to a level of 3 that will speed up the program a little bit, and I want to do some pruning so that these branches are a little bit like hanging. And I think we start with making this to 30 and 60, just a little bit. And now we want to do the big pruning, and we go back to the splitting, and we want 4 again, and we go to pruning and start pruning the tree. And it adds this sort of a mesh, and it will cut all these trees what is getting out of this shape. But you can change these pruning values, like the core, so it will be a little bit wider, but I think 0.7 was already pretty good. All right, and let's increase the prune base, 0.15, and this value to 0.3. I'm looking for a more smaller value, and this is exactly what I was looking for. So if I go back to 0.5, you will see it's wider, but the base is smaller. So if you decrease this to 0.3, you get something like this, and yeah, it's something I like a lot. So we have the pruning, and let's go to leaves. So if you create a tree in Blender, you use a sapling tool, you have the option, of course, to add leaves. But I have an issue with this. So if I just enable this, show leaves, it will add leaves on it. But look at what happened. It's looked like this. And if you're new to trees, you probably think, well, that's good, right? It's leaves on a tree. But for more experienced users for an environment would know that trees are very complex, and it doesn't look like this. Trees have twigs, and twigs, I can show you a sample what it looks like, is keeping one in my hand. It's not just one leaf on the tip of, you can see it's all on the tips of a branch. There are multiple leaves on a branch. So our sapling tool shows this, only one leaf on the end, but we want to sort of have this result. The problem is the sapling tool doesn't give us this value. So I will ignore show leaves, ignore it, and I will quit the tool. We will make more trees in the next chapter. We will do a sort of a nature chapter where we create grass variations, we create tree variations, and create some bushes. Just a full chapter on making some variations. So we get into more variation of the trees, but for now we say, okay, this is good because we want to focus on the twigs. We left click on the tree. We can remove this sort of pruning thing, and we can hide the background image, and there we have our base mesh of the tree. So yeah, I'm really happy with the final result. And in the next lecture, I want to do some tweaking on the core of the tree. And then we're going to focus on the twig, and we're going to add a material, and we're going to make this tree a lovely looking tree. But I will end this lecture now because we're out of time. See you in the next lecture. Bye-bye.